Have you ever woken up between 12 and 3 a.m., wide awake for no reason, and felt something you couldn't explain? Some call it insomnia, but what if it's not? Kathryn Kuhlman believed that these early hours weren't ordinary, they were sacred. A time when heaven moves, angels are dispatched, and destinies shift quietly in the dark. Stay with me, because what you've been ignoring may be the very hour heaven has been waiting to speak. There is something mysterious about the hours between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. Most people are asleep, the world is quiet, the streets are still, but in that silence there's a stirring not in the physical, but in the spiritual. It's not coincidence that your heart suddenly feels heavy at 1 a.m. It's not random that you feel drawn to pray, to think, to reflect, or to weep for no clear reason. These hours are not like the rest. They carry a weight, a softness, a sacredness that many have sensed but few truly understand. Kathryn Kuhlman often spoke about how the atmosphere can change without a sound. That same invisible shift happens in these early hours, where heaven draws near not with noise, but with presence. It's in this time frame, while the world is deep in sleep, that the spiritual realm becomes especially active. Not because the hour holds magic, but because it holds stillness. The distractions are gone. The notifications have stopped. The busyness is silenced, and in that quiet, the soul becomes more open, more available, more ready to receive. It's like the noise of the day finally steps aside, and what you couldn't hear before now you can. The whisper that was buried under meetings and scrolling and conversations begins to rise. And if you pause to listen, if you don't just roll over and go back to sleep, you may begin to sense something. A pull, a peace, a presence. You see, this is the hour when heaven touches earth in a very specific way, not to perform, but to invite. God doesn't need noise to move. He doesn't wait for a stage or a spotlight. He moves in the quiet. He chooses the secret place. And between 12 and 3, there is something unique, a window, a moment, a spiritual climate where prayers carry differently, where faith seems to stretch wider, where tears speak louder than words. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally still enough to feel him. There are people all over the world who have felt the urge to get up during this time and didn't know why. Some say they just couldn't sleep. Others say they were overcome with a burden they couldn't explain. Some sit in the dark and cry without knowing what triggered it. That's not randomness. That's heaven stirring the soul. That's the spirit waking up what the day has numbed. Because there's something about the night that makes the soul more raw, more real. Pretenses fall away, masks drop, and what you've been ignoring all day finally catches up with you. But in that vulnerability, something holy begins to happen, a moment where you can meet God without distraction, without performance, without anything except your honesty. This is also the hour when answers come. Not always the way you expect, but clarity, peace, unexplainable direction. You may not get a voice, but you'll get a knowing. You may not get the miracle instantly, but you'll feel the shift. And once you've experienced that, you'll never want to sleep through it again. Because while everyone else is resting, heaven is moving, and for those who respond, something changes. Kathryn would often say, he's closer than you think. And these hours prove it. You don't have to shout to reach him. You just have to show up. You just have to respond. And isn't that what many of us are missing? We ask for guidance, but we're never still long enough to hear it. We ask for breakthrough, but we're never surrendered enough to receive it. These early hours are a gift, a secret place hidden in time, not meant for everyone to discover, but revealed to those who are willing to rise while it's still dark, not to impress God, but to meet him. Not to earn something, but to be with him awake, available, surrendered. Some people only understand the power of these hours after they've experienced them. They begin to notice that ideas are clearer, prayers are deeper, burdens lift faster. They find themselves crying without knowing why, or suddenly feeling peace in the middle of anxiety. These are not accidents. This is alignment. This is what happens when you walk into that sacred space between midnight and 3 a.m. It's not a performance. It's a conversation. It's an encounter. It's what you've been missing, not because God hasn't been speaking, but because you haven't been listening at the right hour. This hour is still open. The invitation still stands, and for those who say yes, something eternal happens. There's a reason your eyes suddenly open at 2 a.m., a reason your heart starts to race, your mind becomes alert, and you feel something stirring deep inside. You check the clock, confused. You try to roll back to sleep, but sleep doesn't come easily. You shift, you sigh, but something is different. It's not just your body reacting, it's your spirit being awakened. You may not know it in that moment, but often it's an invitation, a divine prompting, a silent whisper from heaven saying, I want to talk to you. Most people dismiss these moments. They assume it's restlessness or stress or something they ate. But what if it's not natural at all? What if it's spiritual? What if waking up between 12 and 3 a.m. isn't a disruption but a divine appointment? This is the question many overlook. The soul is being stirred while the world sleeps. And if we miss that moment, we miss what was meant for us alone. Kathryn Kuhlman often described how the Spirit moves gently, never forcing, always inviting. And that's exactly what happens in these hours. God doesn't shout. He doesn't shake you awake. He quietly nudges your soul because he wants to be alone with you. No phone, no noise, no distractions, just you, just him. And when you wake up at 2 a.m., that's not just random. That's sacred. The problem is, most of us don't realize what's happening. We think it's just another sleepless night, but heaven doesn't operate in random patterns. When God wakes you up, it's for a reason. Sometimes it's intercession. Someone needs your prayer at that very moment. Sometimes it's protection, a warning you need to heed. Sometimes it's intimacy. He just wants to draw near, to speak peace into your confusion. And sometimes it's healing, not just of the body, but of wounds hidden deep within your heart. Those who respond to this stirring often experience something unexplainable, a peace that doesn't match their circumstances, a clarity that wasn't there the day before, a warmth, a lightness, a sense that something in the atmosphere shifted. That's not imagination. That's what happens when you say yes to the invitation. Because what's available between 12 and 3 a.m. is different. It's not just prayer, it's presence. It's not just meditation, it's communion. This is the hour where heaven leans close, and all you have to do is lean back. Some of the deepest transformations begin not in public, but in these hidden hours when no one is watching, when no one is listening, and yet everything is changing. Kathryn understood this. She often said that the greatest miracles didn't begin on stage, but in silence. And the same is true for you. When you wake at 2 a.m. and feel that pull, don't ignore it. That pull is personal. That call is specific. It's heaven reaching out to earth to you, not just to give something, but to become something in you. Maybe that's what you've been missing. Not more effort, not louder prayers, but simple surrender in the silent hours. You don't have to say much. You don't have to know what to pray. You just have to be there. Awake, available, ready, because something always happens when a willing heart meets the waiting presence of God in the middle of the night. That moment when you wake up, when everything is still, when the room is filled with a presence you can't quite explain, That's not a moment to pass over. That's the moment everything begins to change. There's a realm that opens when the world sleeps, a realm that isn't visible, but it's very real. Between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m., something begins to shift in the atmosphere. It's as if time slows down. The air feels different. The noise of the day disappears, and suddenly there's this silence, not empty, but full of presence, full of mystery. And in that stillness, battles are being fought. Not with swords, not with shouting, but in the spirit. What most people don't see is that this is the hour when spiritual warfare intensifies, when forces that operate in darkness begin to move, and when heaven begins to respond. It's not dramatic or loud, it's strategic, it's precise, because in the spirit realm there are windows of time where certain things are released, where breakthrough is activated, and where resistance is pushed back. Between 12 and 3 a.m. is one of those windows. Kathryn Kuhlman often spoke about how the spirit doesn't need an audience to move. The most powerful moments often happen when no one is watching. And in these early morning hours, the Spirit of God moves quietly but deliberately. This is when chains are broken, not because of noise, but because of presence. This is when burdens lift, not because of striving, but because someone dared to sit in the silence and say, "Here I am." The spiritual battles of the day are often won in the stillness of the night. You see, most people assume spiritual warfare looks like chaos, shouting, wrestling, loud declarations. But real warfare often looks like a whisper, like a tear, like someone wide awake at 2 a.m. with their hands open, heart exposed, and spirit alert. It's not about volume, it's about posture. When you enter into this sacred space during these hours, you're not just praying, you're partnering. You're standing in the gap, whether for yourself, your family, your destiny, or even for people you'll never meet. And the truth is, while some are sleeping peacefully, others are under attack. Fear, anxiety, torment, confusion, they often show up strongest at night. That's not by accident. Darkness moves when the body is weakest, when the mind is vulnerable, and when the heart is tired. But those who rise in these hours and speak, even softly speak with authority, not their own, but the authority that comes from alignment with the Spirit. And when that alignment happens, everything changes. Atmospheres shift, oppression lifts, peace enters, not because the problem disappeared, but because heaven stepped in. What's happening between 12 and 3 a.m. is spiritual alignment. The unseen war meets an awakened soul, and the power of surrender becomes the greatest weapon. You may feel tired, even unsure of what to say, but your presence in that hour matters more than you know. It tells darkness, you can't have this space. It tells fear, you're not welcome here. It tells heaven, I'm available. Do what only you can do. That's why breakthrough often begins in the night, not in front of crowds, not on platforms, but alone in hidden rooms, in whispers and in tears. And Kathryn would say, you don't need to understand it all, you just need to respond. Because something always shifts when a believer says yes to the Spirit's call at 3 a.m. And for some, that moment of warfare is the beginning of peace.